Welcome back to another episode of Cerebral Pundits. We have myself, Casey Blueford, joined by my host, Avita Miller. Avita, what is going on today? How are we feeling? How's life?
Feeling
We had a good
good.
last episode. How we doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. I definitely was very cognizant of the last episode and just
Yeah.
taking that into today, into my walk, and into just how I live the day. So yeah, it's been good.
No, last episode was fun. So for those that were unaware, so last episode we interviewed Daniela Devine. Devine? Devine?
Divine.
Divine? Devine? Divine. Sorry,
Yeah.
Daniela. But who's a friend of both of ours, and it was actually our first interview, so I felt like it was pretty cool because she was the first person that kind of got the insight into like what we're looking to do here, what we're looking to build.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool because I felt like it was like this is kind of cool moment, and then it was like, oh, they're making me actually think moment. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I think it was great. Like you said, I think, we've been lucky enough to have both kind of met her at like an earlier stage in our journey. And so getting to circle back and check in and see where we're at now and share what we're working on. And then to your point, not only just being like, hey, we're having you on, but like, ooh, you gotta, like, we're gonna make you think a little bit.
You gotta come with it.
Yeah,
Gotta come with it.
great. And I think she appreciated it. And of course she did great. And, it was cool to just support each other and show up and hear where everybody's at.
Yeah, so I think the cool thing is I think what we're building, we're in the building blocks right now, so we're trying to just put everything together. So it's one thing just to hit record and start talking, but it's another thing to try to build something. So
Yeah.
we're in the process of really trying to build something. So we're trying to target people who are looking to kind of continue to grow and develop, not just in the real estate or the business space, but just in life in general. So sharing real world examples, sharing content from other people who have been inspiring to us, and other guests who have been inspiring to us as well. And just looking to bring those all into our platform to be able to share with other people who are interested.
Absolutely.
So I believe that I finished the pod last time thinking, yeah, this is good. Like this is the right path to take, and we just got to continue to build and grow this thing. And these are the early stages. So at some point we'll get it to where the level that we're striving to be, and then Lord willing, take it even higher than that.
Absolutely. No.
All right. So there was a follow-up activity from our last podcast episode. So given that the last podcast episode wasn't too long ago, it would be just more so of a reminder. So I say the next week, here's what we're going to do for those that didn't hear. There was a concept shared pertaining to creativity and how changing your environment can help foster a new sense of life, so to speak, in your creativity. And so it's and they say, step away from your environment usually takes about 6 minutes. So we're going to call this the 6-minute challenge, and we'll probably even roll this out maybe tonight at the book club. We have a book club meeting tonight for those that are interested. So we're gonna roll that out for the next week. So next time we speak, hopefully we'll see if we could try this out a little bit. So it actually works out because I'll be out of town for a few days, so maybe I'll get to kind of try it out in a different area and really kind of see test my creativity.
Yeah, I was going to add into, I think for those that are going to join us in the activity, definitely watch the other episode too, so you can see what we're talking about. But they do discuss too, or like for different people, it doesn't always necessarily mean like, okay, well, I stepped outside. Where's the big idea? Like understanding that depending on what that could be, I think just having an open mind to that of going, does that look like you took a different route today? Does that look, like you're saying an actual literal, I'm going out of state or out of the country, variations of that, and maybe trying it a couple times to just see, are you thinking differently? Did you even maybe just have a more positive mindset that you were able to just think about something maybe other than the stresses of life or something like that, that it doesn't necessarily have to be this like, big aha moment, but that potentially it could spark something that maybe leads to a bigger idea, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So today, what are we talking about today?
Today, I think we're taking a different angle at discussing like money and wealth. So we talk a lot about mindset and personal growth, but one of those things, obviously, most people, I'm going to say, are interested in making more money or building up that side of their life. And so taking someone else's perspective on some of those ideas.
Absolutely. So we are listening to an episode, so to speak, or a podcast from Rami Sethi.
I haven't heard him pronounce his name.
I'm probably butchering the name, so my apologies. But he has a New York Times bestseller book, "I Will Teach You to Be Rich."
Yeah.
It's such a cliche title too, but I haven't read it, so I'm never going to be judgmental. But I've heard it's a really good book. Yeah. I've talked to people who have read the book and just a lot of reviewing myself. So I just personally have not gotten to it yet. Yeah. But yeah, so he has his podcast and he talks about, brutally honest financial advice. And I feel like it's very simplistic in his approach. But they're just actionable steps that we all have to take. Absolutely. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's why it was good. Like I said, I think just trying to keep in mind and pivot and bring in something in maybe a little different than we've done the last few episodes. So yeah, I think they're reasonable, simple steps that maybe not everyone's as aware of as we think.
So let's get into it. So let's start off with a discussion. We're going to put aside all the BS, right? Because usually when you get asked this question, there's a lot of like, oh, people sound like politicians, right? Like, but what does a rich life look like to you? Like, let's define what is a rich life.
Yeah, I think for me, I know people, I feel like usually what we start seeing, whether it's social media or movies or whatever, is like the big house and all the cars and like all that kind of thing. I feel like to some degree that type of stuff would come with it, like you can afford things even if you're, as you grow, that can happen. But I feel like for me, it's more of being able to upgrade my life without having the stress behind it, of like you're having family over or friends and you want to go all out, like you just get it catered or you just get what you need from the store, or you need a bigger vehicle because you're doing something else, like you just go get it. To me, like that's what I think of when I think of like, and just specifically to money. Obviously your life can be rich in many different ways, but if we're focused on that, to me I imagine not having to think twice. You're not counting pennies. You're not worried about it. Like you've got your things in order. You have who you need, a CPA or whatever, to just be able to, do what you would like.
Yeah. So you mentioned one thing on there. So when I think about a rich lifestyle, and I thought about this a little bit this morning, but then work was just busy, so I kind of forgot about it. But you brought up something like have your things in order. So I think there's steps to it, but for me, a rich lifestyle is to be able to create the memories that I want without the burden.
Yes.
Right. So like to your point, if I want to have a party,
I think we're on the same path. I like how you said that.
I want to be able to create moments, because life's a scrapbook, right? In its moments, we think about it. We don't think about every single thing in our life, but we remember random things, and we remember random things because those are random moments that stood out. So like very similar to like Inside Out too, right? Crazy analogy, but Inside Out just in general, like they have the little memory bubbles and you remember certain things you don't, but like that's life, because sometimes you sit back and you think like, man, why do I remember that? So right. And it's just like some random thing. So so for me, a rich lifestyle is to be able to create more of those moments on my own terms. So if I do want to have a party and we're getting low, hey, go order some more pizza, go get some more drinks, and not even have to think about it. But the biggest thing is because, to your point, like I'll have my things in order already. So I've already put in the work. I've already built the foundation, so to speak, to where like I know I can do this, and I can do it at this level without even second guessing.
And I guess that's why I bring up too, almost like the scaling, because I think that could look different as you go. Like maybe it starts off, like you said, of, maybe the next step, you're ordering pizzas at the party and not stressing anymore. Whereas before it was like, shoot, what do we do?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we get like one more. It's like almost like getting when you're like in college and people like, what does your fridge look like? And then now you hit a point where you're like, okay, come on, the basics are a little different.
Yeah.
You can have a full meal here and then it just kind of grows. So I feel like, that what that looks like can evolve with you in the stages you're in. But like you said, of just hitting a point where you can have some order, have some stability in the sense that it is not, like to your point, going to burden you or flip your life upside down, that you can, do these things. Maybe they're not on a day-to-day basis, but just have that flexibility to, as needed or as you would like to give to somebody or help out.
So question for you. What does that look like currently in your life? Because we're striving towards something.
Yeah.
But there are wins on a daily basis, right? And I think that those wins need to be celebrated. Those need to be pointed out. Like these are, like I continue to say, like these are big moments, even though they might not seem super big, but these are big moments. So currently, what is it in your life that you believe that, hey, this I live a rich lifestyle in this aspect, or about this? Is there anything currently?
I think right now, I think I'm living a rich lifestyle in my relationships.
Okay.
And by that, I don't mean like a singular, but I just mean in general. I think I'm many things, but I think just in maybe relationships or intention. I think I'm living rich of putting intention behind everything I do, or trying to, easier said than done. But I think that has made a big shift, and being intentional of like, where am I spending my time? Who am I spending with? And I think that to me that feels rich, of not just literal riches, but just in the sense of like, if you like, we do the book club, that's intentional. It's who I'm around and the ideas we're talking about and how we're growing, of doing the podcast, of like, how can we grow together and how can we help others? If I'm with my family, being very intentional of like, okay, how am I spending my time with them? How long? What are we doing? How long do I want to be here? Maybe it's longer than some think is okay. Do I feel good about that and rolling with it? Of really, being pure with it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I would say for me right now, rich. So it's just a weird season. It's definitely a season of growth right now. So I feel like there's opportunities that I'm kind of working through.
Yeah.
I think that in and of itself is the rich lifestyle for me. I feel like I'm in a season of growth, but I'm in a season of like grit as well. And I feel like I'm liking who I'm becoming even more.
Yeah.
So while I might not like the outcome of everything right now, or I might not like the appearance per se of everything right now, I think that the soil that's being nurtured, so to speak, is what I'm liking, because I feel like I'm becoming more confident and more assertive in my approach, more deliberate in my time, and I feel like those are things that I feel like can be transferable to when you get to the level that you want to be or that you're striving to be. Those are things that are going to be a part of you now. So it's not going to be something that you're striving towards. Like those are going to be part of that growth. So, while I feel like there's still room for growth, I do like what I'm becoming. So,
yeah, I think that's excellent. Grit and growth paired together. I like it.
So, as a society, when we talk about financial freedom, right? The phrase is probably used in every the buzzword in every investor community or real estate community or business. Like, I want to reach financial freedom. It's just like I feel like people feel like if you say that, they're like, it's like everyone's like, oh, okay, right. But like, what does that look like for everyone? It's different for everyone, and I feel like a lot of people cannot define what that looks like, so they'll give you some generalized answer. But do you think as society we strive towards a number versus towards a feeling, or maybe not a feeling, because that's kind of sometimes separate too, but we strive towards a number versus a status per se, right? Like, what would you say? What would you say most people, when they say rich lifestyle, they're going to say what, a number first, or they're going to say something else? What do you think?
That's interesting. That's an interesting approach to it, because I think as we're discussing this, it also kind of brings up like, I feel like people also a lot of times say they want financial freedom, or I want this, but quite honestly, if you ask them, I honestly don't know if they would have an answer for either. No. I think you or I would, because we truly like we're diving into this, we're truly trying to learn, we're around the people, we're doing the things. And so these are questions we've asked ourselves or started to dive into. And maybe we don't have, an exact on either end, but like we know the direction we're headed, right? And like all things are leading towards that. But I do think it's interesting that I'm not sure most people would even have that answer. Or if they did, I think they would just throw out something, I would just, yeah, of course it'd be great. If I could just have $1 million, I'd be set. Or if of course, if we could just not have to go to work, haha, I think it would be more generalized, where I don't actually know if people will, they hear the term, but I think it's almost this elusive, life that I'm not even sure people have ever even thought that, like, is that possible? And what is that? What is that dream?
What is that? Absolutely. Let's dig into it. Let's dig into this a little bit.
Yeah.
So let me play an excerpt here. Here we go.
Beautiful goals. So to achieve financial freedom, start by defining what your rich life looks like. Think about it. What would you like to be spending more on? And what would you like to be spending less on? What would you like to be doing with your time? What will it feel like when you wake up, when you eat lunch, and in the afternoon, and when you're with your family or your friends? Think about that. In other words, instead of obsessing over a specific dollar amount, focus on what you truly want to get out of life and how your money can support that vision.
I love that.
All right. Yeah, I love that analogy as well. So sorry, not a lot. I love that definition as well. Yeah. And it's funny because I nowadays I don't think too much about the dollar. Yes, like the dollar provides the means for sure. So I know I need, I'm a numbers guy, so I need to to some degree. I'm a numbers guy. Let's be real. I know enough, but I know I gotta reach this threshold to do this or this or this. But I really bask in that feeling. Like, what does that feel like? Like when those times are like tough, and I'm just like, man, like I think about, man, I need to hit this goal so I can feel this. Like the feeling of being able to wake up and not have to be at the gym at 4:30 in the morning, to be at work by 7 o'clock, to be home by, what I mean? So to be able to just lay down and think, okay, I'm going to start here in an hour or not, like that feeling in of itself, or, hey, I'm going to take my kid to the park and I'm going to go get ice cream and we're going to go to Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. And we're going to go do this, right? And not have any worries about it. And not to say I can't do any of that now, but to be able to live a life to where I can consistently do that. I bask in that feeling more than anything right now.
Interesting. I think that's cool. I think it's a good point too, of like having, so it almost sounds like more just freedom in your schedule. It sounds like just freedom to do things you would like to, as they come up as an idea, instead of having to maybe plan it out a little more of like, well, we can, but maybe this afternoon, or maybe it's next weekend because we've got this going on.
Because how I feel though, Vida, I feel like when there's freedom, it sparks creativity for me.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I'm free, when my mind is free, like I'm a monster. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like that's the best version of me, because I'm thinking this, I'm doing this. Yeah. And maybe I overthink stuff, probably, but I feel like when I am the most free, and I feel like the most liberated, is when I do my best work.
Yeah. I think that's probably, you know what? I would be curious for most of us, if we truly were able to like step away, how much creativity or ideas we would have, like how things would look. Cause when they say like, oh, like your vacation or some of the stuff we've been talking about are like this 6 minutes. And it's like that idea of just like switching things up, because I think it's so easy for us to get bogged down by like your routines and your habits. And, I guess this goes to all of our conversations, but I think it's really easy for us to feel like I have to do these things, or you're already thinking about, I'm sure it's different things for you, but just like, okay, what's for dinner? And I got to go here and I should probably answer that email. And, like your phone goes off 20 times while you're sitting here, and I feel like it's so easy to like, you have this running to-do list that like,
always,
I don't feel like we ever really take a lot of time to just kind of be and sit with our thoughts long enough to let that creativity spark. So I definitely think there's something to that.
I want to play this part.
Yeah.
Develop it. ultimately your rich life will always be about not just what, oh, I get to buy some stuff. Fine. I love it. But also who do I get to take with me? Who do I get to delight? Who do I get to surprise? And these are skills you've got to learn by doing them. Now,
the who is real. Like that's something I'm like really, really passionate about is the who. And you've heard me talk about this. I'm very deliberate with who I, allow my circle, who I call friends. And I feel like there's a reason for it, because in order to get to the level I want to go, like I have to have the right people in my corner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's very important. I think that you kind of probably kind of adapt the same type of mentality, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that goes with like having the intent, right? Of like, who am I around? How am I feeling with this? Is this pushing me a good direction? Is this kind of making you feel a little like, I don't know. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're around necessarily bad people, but just like, are we all striving to get better? Are we all willing to hear each other out, our different views? I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be an obvious like, oh no, this crew is good and this crew is bad. Not so much. Sometimes it's even subtle where you're like, man, I really like this friend, but like, gosh, every time I go to work, I pitch you my crazy idea and you're like, yeah, okay, we're never doing that. It's like, dang, all right, sorry, but
I want to talk about, he hits on like making sure like you secure a financial base. So securing a financial base, he talks about your, triad. So your work, relationships, and money.
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest part for most people? Is it the work? Is it the relationships? Or is it the money piece?
I'd venture to say it's the money piece.
Yeah, probably.
I think.
I think there's challenges with each, obviously. I'm sure we can admit that.
Yeah, I would say probably the money or relationships would be, I'm going back and forth between the two. And my reasoning behind that would be money, I think, depending on how you grew up, depending on your experiences, like there's a lot of things that could have just been instilled in you or not instilled in you that can make that feel very intimidating. It could be, I think it could be, I don't know. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to change that. Yeah, I think it can be intimidating.
Yeah. I'm like, stand on business. Like,
I think it's intimidating to a lot of people because I think they either feel like to cross a certain threshold, it's not possible, or they weren't given the resources or this or that. And I think there's just a number of different ways that, people don't know how to manage their money. So it's not intimidating of like, of course, if you ask somebody, would you like more money? They're going to say, yeah, of course. But there's going to be something around that that's going to stop them. And I don't think if you look at it, I think most people understand to a degree you're going to have to work or they have a job or whatever. So I feel like, to different levels, that's probably accepted. They're okay on that. Okay, we can do that. I've got a job. All right, cool. And I say relationships second because I think that, relationships could be the people around you as your friends. It could be your family. It could be your spouse, especially if it's a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They say like that's one of the number of reasons people get divorced or whatever. And so I think that it might even actually trump, but I think they go hand in hand because if you are not in alignment with somebody on how they handle funds, whether it's business or a partnership or whatever, I think that's going to show up really quickly.
No, you're right. It's a really good point. I love your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Let's listen to where he talks about no freedom without security. I want to get some thoughts on this.
But stability is essential. I love stability. I created what's called the tripod of stability. That means 3 things are super important in my life. I need to make sure they are stable. Work, relationships, and what the hell was the third one? Oh yeah, money. That needs to be stable. What does that mean? It means that I'm spending time with my friends and family. It means that my money is invested primarily in low-cost index funds. It's automated. And that allows me to take risks in other parts of life. See, there's no financial freedom without financial security. Many of the stories that you hear seem like moonshots. This person got accepted to the NBA. This person sold their company for $55 million. That's fantastic. but I don't build a rich life based on hoping that I'm winning the lottery. No, I'm going to engineer a rich life step by step by step, even if it feels a little boring at first.
All right, so let's talk. Sorry, little technical challenges, guys. Sorry about that.
You're okay.
So let's talk about that, because in the space that we're in, sometimes we hear no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
If you're not risking it all, you're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you saving money? Put it all into this.
Yeah.
And his advice is, hey, you got to get your foundation set first, right? Like, you got to have stability. You have to have security. But at the same time, you can still, invest. You can still take some risk. But, like, no, I'm not. It doesn't sound like he's subscribing to some of the other,
I think that's where this is good. Right? This is another end, especially like you said, everybody's all risk it, and you got to give it all up. You got to be willing to give it all up to do the thing, and that'll pressure you into it, or you're gonna believe in it that much, and it's gonna work out. But obviously, this is probably a little bit further on the other end of the spectrum. But I mean, I think it's worth considering, right? Like, the whole reason we watch these things or try to learn from others is to try to get a pulse on, if you can take a little bit from this person, a little bit from your own experience. I think that's how you truly end up well-rounded and being able to make, solid decisions and lean into your instincts as well as your knowledge. I feel like it's somewhere in the middle. So I think, yes, take risks, but I feel like this is more along the lines of a calculated risk, right? Like, you might see that he invested, I think at some point here, he says like he put in 100,000 into this fund. Well, if you're somebody that like, that's your life savings, that doesn't mean for you to go put all of that in. Like when you hear the rest of the story, you're going, oh, I thought that was a huge risk. But as we're hearing you talk, that is minimal risk, So I think I like what he's saying of have some things set, have your work in place, have your relationships going, automate things. I thought that was really key when he said like, automate it. Don't make it difficult on yourself. It shouldn't have to be like, we see like on the movies, they're sitting behind the screens and we're watching, the market go and, invest now, do it now. Like, no, like streamline it. Does that mean having like whatever, $20 from your paycheck go into your savings here and there, or for investments?
Absolutely.
Like what can you set up to make this easy to where, okay, we've got the baseline going. Now we also have room to breathe, and kind of like we were talking about before, like your creativity. I also feel like it gives us space to like, okay, we're not thinking about some of those things. So now we can actually really step back and look at like, okay, what do I want to invest in? What do we want to try out? It gives you flexibility.
Yeah. So let's hit on that, because we were actually going to talk about that a little bit further down, but automation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this when he was sharing it. I think automation is great, but I feel like we don't utilize it enough, not necessarily in just money, but just in life in general.
Yeah.
So think about how frequent or how much space your brain is occupied on, to-do task or must do or have to do this, things that could be automated, which would free your mind and free your time, right? Because our time is our most valuable thing, because we don't get it back.
Yeah.
To do other things. And I was just listening to this earlier, and I was just thinking, obviously, I'm listening to him to talk about financial advice.
Right.
But I was just thinking, okay, what things could I help automate? What things could I automate that will free me up?
Yeah.
If I was freed up, I wouldn't be so tired or consumed with doing some of these things, then my creativity would spark even more. Right. So could I bring on someone to help with our marketing and, edit our videos? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Could that free me up? Could I bring on someone to help me, develop some, business buying spreadsheets? Maybe. Right. Like those are things that, maybe right here, right now might not be, okay, maybe I can't do this yet. But as I continue to progress and move forward, those are things I'm like, okay, I need to put something in place to do that. And it kind of goes back to the whole who, not how, which is one of my favorite books.
Yeah. It's funny you're thinking about that too, because I'm like, we just had a webinar yesterday live with Dan Martell. I don't know you're familiar with him.
That's my guy.
buy back your time. But it's the
I need
same.
I need to listen to that webinar too, by the way. I got to listen to that.
Oh, it's good. You're going to love it. There were so many good moments and questions that he went into. But one of the things too he talks about is if you don't have an assistant, you're the assistant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there were so many people and they're like, oh my God, I just need to hire somebody.
Which is so basic. It's such a basic statement though.
But I feel like it's kind of along the same lines of, like you said, if we're looking at our time, and it's funny how much, and I'm guilty of this myself, but you know, we hold on to things and it's like, oh, I couldn't let them do that. Or like, they're not going to do it as good as me. But it's like, I mean, heck, even if it buys you back half your time, that's still more than you had, you know? I mean, it's crazy.
Yo, so okay, I need to find a Dan Martell video because I watched some of his videos on YouTube. Yeah. We're gonna do one of his. But yeah, no, to your point, without getting too deep into that, like, yeah, those are just things I was just been thinking about. I'm like, you know what, like, automation can help me be better with my finances, yes, but also just be better with my time. So, we're gonna watch a little bit longer clip here. Let's go into it.
Covering 3 to 6 months of bare minimum living expenses, basically what it would take to keep the lights on. And this emergency fund is what will keep you afloat during unexpected events. For example, a job loss, medical emergencies, or unexpected car repair. Without this cushion, any financial progress you make could be wiped out in an instant. Now, you might be wondering, how do I start paying off debt or paying for an emergency fund when I don't have any money left at the end of the month? Now, this is a very good question. It's a very common situation for people. I'm not saying you have to start saving $500 a month or $1,000 a month. One of the problems that I consistently see when I look at people's finances is that they don't pay themselves first. You've heard this phrase, pay yourself first. Everybody's heard it, but almost nobody does it. And let me tell you what I used to do, because it was a horrible mistake. I used to sit there and work line by line by line with them. You know, somebody's at 116% fixed costs, and I would be like, okay, where do you think you can cut this? And they're like, there's literally nothing we can cut. I'm sitting there looking at a car payment of $1,200 a month. Their groceries cost $1,600 a month. Their subscriptions are $948. They're like, we really need 3 gym memberships. And
sorry, real quick, groceries $1,600 a month. What are they buying? Is everything organic?
Oh my God.
Sheesh. Okay.
Sorry. I realized that doesn't work. So I started doing something entirely different. I said, this is an ICSP. We're going to blank it out. I just zeroed the whole thing out. I'm like, you tell me you have this much money. Where do you want it to go? And what you will see is that when people are free of the very constraints they have put upon themselves, they will often allocate their money very rationally. They will put money in savings right up front. They will put money in investments right up front. They will carefully control their housing and vehicle costs, because most of us are simply dealing with our finances that have been decided months or even years ago. In other words, sometimes you just need a fresh perspective on your money. Here's another.
Yo, so this is so real right now. The reason I say it's so real, like, in all transparency, I have college loan debt to get my master's. I got some credit card debt. I just debt, right? Like most probably Americans do. And sometimes you feel like, man, how can I get ahead? Right? Being a single family income with dependents, it's like, how can I get ahead? But no matter what, every single month, I remind myself, I got to pay myself first. I have to pay myself first. And sometimes that could be 5%. Sometimes that could be 10%. But at a minimum threshold, I always make sure I pay myself first as I continue to stack while still paying off debt. But the thing is, it could be a vicious cycle. So when he talks about sometimes we just need a clean slate, that is so true. So like my suggestions for anyone listening to this is do what you can to just get that clean slate. Yeah. Especially like if you know what you need to do, if you know what you can or what you should do, like do all that you can to get a clean slate. If that means getting a second job, some situations, figuring out how you can work smarter, not harder. That can mean, asking or proposing for a raise at your current job. Like there's so many ways to kind of go about getting, additional funds, and especially in today's society.
Yeah.
But that clean slate, it's so true, right? Like when he said that, it just hit home. So I was like, man, I've been working through that now for, a year, 18 months to a year, right?
Yeah. Holy cow. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I definitely, I'm going to be honest, I grew up in a Dave Ramsey household. So other than I am very blessed and lucky enough that I at least embraced some of that. I'm going to say that, you know, I don't necessarily follow it 100%, but I hear where that comes from. And so, you know, other than like my mortgage, I really don't have debt. So
good.
I'm really blessed in that. And that's why I guess I appreciate you sharing, because I know that will hit home a lot harder for people, because unfortunately that is something that like, I'm not going to fully understand how you attack it. Obviously I know the methods behind it. But I'm going to have a different perspective just naturally coming from a different angle from that. So I appreciate you diving into that. And I think too, you know, I like what he said about how you attack it. You know, that it is interesting where like, if you look at your stuff, you're like, well, I have to pay this and I have to pay that. Da, da, da. But like, if you just ask somebody, like you said, flip that and go, okay, money's not a thing. What's on your list? Like what needs to be there? You probably would notice that like, oh, well, I could just drive this car. Man, you know, I really, we could get by with, you know, 800 on groceries or whatever. And I think that's interesting. Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking even earlier when he started the video, I actually did this earlier this week or last week. I literally just took a notepad, digital notepad, and I literally wrote out everything that I could think of, at least at the moment. And I did 2 columns. What do I need? What do I want? You know, and the wants weren't necessarily crazy of like, you know, I need a new Lamborghini. Like, no, not like that. But just like to our point of like, what would I like to have? So like, what could I aim for that this would be great? But these are the things that like, you know, what are the actual needs so that when I'm looking at stuff, was that actually on your needs list? No, you know, you know, and you can kind of figure out, you know, how do I want to juggle these things? Because I think it does give you a different perspective of like, oh, I could shuffle that. I can make that work.
Yeah, to his point, like a lot of their stuff are fixed per se, right?
Yeah.
So we feel like because they're fixed, there's nothing we can do about it. But if your situation sucks, like you have to work to get up out of it, right? So for example, like the home that we live in now, like it's not the most ideal home. We bought it sight unseen. It worked for about a year, but now we're starting to notice certain things, and it's like, okay, we got to get up out of here. Like we can't just sit in it, you know. Like there's most people just tolerate it, but like no, like if something's wrong, like you have to find a way to fix it. Yeah. So like if you're in debt and you feel like, hey, all I need is just I need to break clean. Well, you have to work towards that.
Chip away at it.
Yeah, and it might take you 3 years, might take you 5 years, but the thing about it is, when you do become free of that, you know what that feels like, and you never want to put yourself in that position anymore. Absolutely. So you're only going to be that much better, the next time you go through this process. So
yeah, no, I think that's huge. Like get yourself out of debt, and then I do support what he said as well of like having that 3 to 6 months, because I feel like to me that's one of those. It's not if, it's when. Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon. Yeah, I mean, like you can get cut from your job. You can have something go out. I mean, like this summer, literally beginning of summer, and yes, I live in Arizona. AC went out. AC went out, and it wasn't like we were hoping it was going to be a part. Of like, come on, just tell me it's a couple hundred, but no, it was several thousand. To get it fixed. But of course, what am I going to do? Not take care of it? And so, but like those are the things that come up. Of we're not talking about, oh shoot, I just need to tank of gas. Like having a little more cushion of like, okay, that I can probably put on a credit card, but like, am I ready if something bigger goes out that like, oh no, I really need to get this taken care of. Having that cushion just helps, take at least a little bit of that stress and burden away, that you can just handle your business and okay, get back to work or make up that difference and get back to it.
Think about it. Most people, they say most people live paycheck to paycheck, which is somewhat probably true. But most people are living one mistake away from something bad happening. Right? Mm-hmm. So like your bank account is one mistake away from being gone. Yeah. Or it's one situation or one scenario, one unforeseen circumstance. I shouldn't say mistake. One circumstance away from.
Mistake seems harsh. Don't mess up.
Mistake is harsh. But even so, like you are, like it is. I mean, circumstances. You're saying one, like you text, and next thing you know, you drive on the curb, and you accidentally totaled your car.
Yeah.
But dang, now you're done, right? Like, and that's such an unfortunate situation. So,
absolutely.
some really good points made. He talks a lot about high yield savings accounts. So we're not a financial podcast, so we're not going to go into that very deeply. But this is one area that I have thought more and more about trying to put some money in over time. So I thought this was a good part of the podcast because I felt like it was kind of educational. I was like, you know what, I've been thinking about that for a while. I need to move with that. I got some buddies that kind of operate in that space.
Yeah, I've dabbled
too. Let's see. I want to move to. We're gonna watch one last clip here.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about target date funds because I thought this was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let it cook. The way they work is they automatically are diversified and they automatically get more conservative over time. So when you're young, they tend to be more aggressive. That's exactly how you want it. As they're older, you want them to shift a little bit to becoming more conservative. You don't want grandpa invested 99% in the S&P 500. Grandpa needs stability, okay? Grandpa can accept slightly lower returns in exchange for stability, which means, increasing the bond mix, etc. When choosing which target date funds to invest in, it's pretty simple. You simply look for the year you plan to retire. For example, if you plan to retire at 65 and you'll be 65 in 2060, you would look for a 2060 target date fund. You can find these low-cost funds at Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. I personally use Vanguard, but it's totally up to you.
So I thought this was cool because I actually had never heard of target date funds.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this might be something to really look into, and I'd be curious to see like the plans that they put in place for you. I always like learning about this kind of information because I feel like it's additional information I don't know. If I can tack it on to what I do know from like an investor standpoint, and like, okay, how could I tie this with this, right?
Yeah.
How could I do this in addition to do this, and then could that escalate and make things move faster, right?
Yeah.
So I thought this was pretty interesting.
I'm glad that this got you to think because I wasn't sure how this would go. Like I said, I'm glad to hear that because I think this is a great scenario of like, you don't know what you don't know, but your base or common sense might be different than mine, And so I think this portion of it was maybe a little more familiar to me. But to your point, I did like it in the sense that I think it sparks discussion around like, not only how do we grow personally, but how do we diversify? And so, yes, we happen to discuss real estate and wealth and those types of things more frequently because that's the space we're in. And I know obviously a lot of people use real estate to build wealth, but I don't think that subtracts from knowing or discussing other options that are out there. And to your point, I think the same way it doesn't hurt to have 3 to 6 months on standby, does it hurt to create some stability and you have some maybe lower risk funds that now allow you to be more aggressive in your investments and take those chances, or in businesses that you're buying or different areas that now you can do that because you've kind of got these varying levels of things that you feel comfortable in, not only your day-to-day expenses, but okay, we've got some building up for retirement and this and that.
No, very, very well said. Very well said. And I think like I'm not one to put all my eggs in one basket. I never felt like that, right? And I also feel like the more that you know, the more that you can teach. Yeah. And I feel like that's so important. And being able to say, hey, if someone asks, Casey, what do you know about stocks? Well, I don't know too much, but I know if you look into this. Right. Or, Casey, what do you know about real estate investing? Well, I don't know too much, but I know if you do this. Yeah. Right. And then just like those little nuggets can be the breadcrumbs for someone else to start their path, per se.
Absolutely.
So all in all, I thought this was a good listen to. And I think that anything that we, bring to this platform is going to have some form of educational value. And I thought this was a good one.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to learn wherever we can from each other, from others. I think you're right. It's definitely meant to be educational based and help us all grow from it.
So before we get out of here for the day, we are a day before Halloween. I have to ask you, what are you dressing up as, Anita? What are you dressing up as tomorrow?
And I would say, do you even know me? I'm just kidding.
Are we dressing up or no?
I am not dressing up that I'm planning on. We're going as me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be popping by. My little cousins will be dressed up. So I'm gonna go see them. Obviously, check out the candy, scope it out.
Check out the candy.
Yeah,
You're gonna be on guard.
Yeah, I'm there for the visiting, of course. But yeah, Halloween. I joke that like, do you know me? Because like Halloween's probably not the biggest thing in my world. I like seeing the kids dress up. Obviously, if I had kids or something like that, it would be a little different, right?
That part.
I feel like this is probably more pivoted to where I'm like, I would love to know what you guys are doing. What are you dressing up as? What are the kids going as?
Yeah, so Halloween was never really my thing, and kind of still isn't. Like Thanksgiving, like now we're talking, right?
No. Oh, we're almost there then.
Food, we were talking. You have me. I'll do Thanksgiving for a whole week.
Warm up.
But we are dressing up as all versions of Spider-Man. So we have Miles Morales, we have Spider-Man, and then I am the old Spider-Man. So I'm old Peter
Parker. Fun.
So
my gosh, that's great. I hope you guys have so much fun. You have to take pictures too.
We'll do. Well, we appreciate you guys listening, and we will be back soon with another episode. Have a good one.
Absolutely.
Bye.